Welcome to Marketing, Media, and Money, your go-to podcast for proven profitable strategies, secrets, and resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. Here's your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. I am really excited because I think with the new year coming and everything, everybody's thinking about what are they going to do this year, how are they going to navigate 2025, and how are they going to get clients. But what if you could stop getting caught up in the trap of rescuing clients who aren't ready to invest in real transformation and instead consistently attract high-achieving clients that are eager to invest in their success, who value your expertise, are eager to grow, and they see coaching as a forward-focused investment. Today, we're going to deep dive into how to refine your messaging, solve the right challenges, and create forward-focused conversations that position your coaching as the ultimate tool for transformation. So I have the perfect person with me today for this conversation. Let me tell you a little bit about her. So Amanda Kaufman's the founder of the Coaches Plaza and has generated over $2 million in revenue, primarily through co-created action coaching and courses. And her journey exemplifies the power of perseverance and authentic connection in the coaching and consulting world. And with over 18 years of business consulting experience, Amanda shifted her focus to transformative client relationships, overcoming personal challenges like social anxiety and body image issues. And she rapidly built a successful entrepreneurial coaching company from a list of just 8 names, quitting her corporate job in 4 months and retiring her husband within 9 months. And I love that. And I love having you here. So thank you so much for being here, Amanda. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Patty. I've been looking forward to this.
I've really been looking forward to it too. And I have to tell you, I have really enjoyed all the posting and the sharing and the really being very direct. I love direct and really getting out there and saying what you have to say. There's no way no one could be thinking, oh, I'm not exactly sure what she means, right? I love that so much. And so today, I think this is really a conversation worth having. So let's just dive right in. So you talk a lot about eagles. I love that. So what makes high-achieving clients or eagles stand out from others, and how can coaches adjust their approach and shift their mindset to consistently attract those ideal clients?
I love that. Yeah. So when I started building my coaching business, I was a hot mess. I would basically talk to anybody with a pulse and say, hey, can I coach you? Can I coach you? And it kind of reminds me of that children's book about the little duckling that's trying to find its mama, right? Like, do you want to be my client? Do you want to be my client? And the blessing in that was I got to really see a lot of different personalities, people with different backgrounds, people with different aptitudes and talents and skills. And eventually I came up with this idea of the eagle versus the broken wing. So this is really speaking to like, how do you speak to the people that you wish to serve? Are you treating them like the eagles they are? Or are you saying, poor baby, oh, you've got a broken wing. Oh, you're stuck. Oh, you're going to be stuck forever. Oh, that's horrible. And the issue with that messaging is, and this is why it's more of a messaging thing than necessarily a person thing. I'm married. So if I speak to my husband in a way that's very like, poor baby, oh, poor you, he plays into that broken wing side of his persona, right? When I speak to the eagle in my man, he steps up and he's like ready to Patty, this morning, he gave me the best pep talk ever because I'm going to be doing a pretty important masterclass later today. And, it was the eagle talking, right? But if you know people, you know that they have different sides. So the idea of eagle messaging is you're speaking to the side of the person that is ambitious, that's hardworking, that is achievement oriented, that is willing to face their fears and activate their courage. And what's funny is you can talk to the same person with different messaging and elicit a very different response. So, I think that's an important thing to understand, because if you do, it means that you can have low ticket products that fit for people with that budget. But if you're working with somebody who's in a premium state, it's going to work for them too, because they're in like that activated mindset that makes them want to pursue their best version of themselves. So whatever investment you're asking for, high ticket, low ticket, it is reflective of how they see themselves. And you want eagles in your practice, not broken wings.
There's a couple things you said there that I really want to unpack. One, I love what you're saying about like the eagle and how it's kind of like how we show up. So whatever your pricing is, when you show up as an eagle and they rise up to be an eagle, whatever the pricing is that's appropriate for them, they're not showing up with a broken wing, right? Because they're excited about that too. So I love that. But I also love when you said that in the beginning, I think like most entrepreneurs, right, when they get out there, right, they're not talking to their right client, the right fit client, mostly because they don't know who it is and they don't have clarity, right? But you learn really fast how to accept a no. And what is a yes, what is a no, and what is a no, not now, because you have to. Like, so you really learn and you get that discernment of what that really is, and you get the clarity you need. So then you are able to show up as an eagle, which again, then attracts other eagles, right?
So love that. I really believe that coaching is a leadership role. And to me, one of the highest forms of leadership is how do you self-lead, right? And how are you showing up and channeling? And, Patty, that's why I decided to join your community, because I was like, gosh, this gal's got it going on. Like, she's so confident. She, when you stand, you got this kind of laid back swagger that's also really powerful. And it just it projects this confidence. And when you watch, like, if anybody, this is your first episode, you got to watch Patty for a while, because the thing is she doesn't break. She's not just putting it on, right? And that's that to me is the leadership piece of it that allows you to attract more people who are also looking at themselves as hey, I want to have that swagger. Hey, I don't want to break. Hey, I want to, I want to be, but at the same time, you're very authentic. You tell the truth and all of that. And I think that when you do that, you attract people.
Thank you so much. I received that and I love it. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm so thankful you're in my community. I have to tell you, you say this phrase and I find it very interesting. And the phrase is solving problems of appropriate magnitude. Mm-hmm. I have to tell you, just that phrase is kind of sexy, even really, So can you share what you mean by that for those that don't get it? And how can coaches identify and target these problems so that they connect with clients who are ready to take action and achieve results?
Love this. So just like every entrepreneur, I've read the books and they all said, pick a niche. They all said have this specialty. And what I found is a premium coach, somebody who wanted to work with people who were really into the deep work and they were willing to invest significantly, and I would be able to spend significant time with them. I realized niche, not good enough. You can't just stop there at a niche or an ideal avatar. It's what is your ideal avatar facing in their life that ideally they're already throwing time, money, and attention at, right? That's a problem. And it's an appropriate magnitude because they've already demonstrated a magnitude of commitment to solving the challenge or achieving the goal. I have this ABCD test that I like to use with my clients on are you really working on a problem of appropriate magnitude? And that is, what are you helping your client achieve, become, create, or do? Achieve, become, create, or do. And so a PAM is going to pass that test, right? A problem of appropriate magnitude. I call it PAM for short. A PAM is going to help somebody meaningfully achieve something or create something or become something or do something. And it's way beyond the feeling. Because a lot of coaches, one of the biggest mistakes they make is they're like, well, I'll make you feel better. You're going to feel better than you ever had. And that presents like two problems. One, it's vague. So people have a hard time making the logical side of the buying decision. You maybe have them on the emotional side, but do you have them on the logical side? And the other problem is the day they're grumpy in your program, when you sold them on you will be happier, the day they're sad, the day they're grumpy, I look at emotions, they're like weather, man. It's nice when it's sunny, but clouds come in and clouds will move out. Do you want to be held accountable to somebody's weather patterns? Or would you like to be more deliverable focused? And that's what I advocate for coaches to do, is like get clear on the goal.
I think that is so important. And a lot of that comes down to positioning and messaging, right? And I think that messaging is crucial when we're positioning coaching as an investment rather than a rescue. And I know you talk about that as well. Can you share how coaches can reframe their messaging to attract results-oriented clients and not those that just want to be rescued?
For sure. I think it can be really tempting to, go out there and see what everybody else is doing and then just copy that. And I would say, yes, do your research, but make sure you contextualize everything. So I'll give you a really common example, like wealth coaching. If you go to Facebook, you look up different Facebook groups, you're going to see, make $1 million, make wealth, these big, bodacious claims with sometimes hundreds of thousands of people in the groups. So you might think, okay, well, that's probably a good message. Except a premium client, I couldn't help but notice, Patty, your word of the year is discernment. And to me, the biggest difference between a premium client and someone who's, I'd say, much earlier in their journey, right? And I love to phrase it like that because I remember a time when I was living, paycheck to paycheck and ramen noodles were for dinner, right? So I get the transformation piece, but what you're selling to and speaking to is the person who's arrived at a level of discernment that they know you're full of it when you say you're going to make them $1 million in 12 months. If you don't say how, if you don't have a method that you're teaching for how you're going to accomplish that. And this is kind of paradoxical, but I have found that if you make smaller, impactful promises that you can keep by following through, and then you build the social proof and you simply speak to that, that's the most powerful messaging that there is. And, I know there's a lot of training on like NLP and using the special magic words. And I'm like, what's really magic? Actually help people, right? At the level that they're at, that what they want to accomplish, they're happy to pay, especially if you're going to help them get there faster, right? For premium clients, like really look at how can you accelerate the speed while maintaining the quality and lowering some risk. But the number one thing I've noticed premium people generally want is faster.
And I think that's so true. And I think looking back, and I'm sure at some point you experienced this too. And for those that are out there, I'm sure they did as well. But I remember when I would coach and say your session that day was an hour, like getting off the phone at an hour, that it was always like they wanted an hour, 15 minutes, an hour. Like you were so caught up because they were a broken wing versus an eagle. And once I stepped into what I knew I was supposed to do and who I was supposed to serve, it was so refreshing and exciting to me when someone would get on the phone for their hour session and 10 minutes in, they're like, no, Patty, just tell me what the next thing I need to do is. And it wasn't about time, right? It was about, no, I'm going to take the rest of that time, my energy, and like go do the thing, right? So it wasn't like, oh, well, let's just sit here for an hour, when really we got to the gist of what we needed to do in the first 10 minutes. Good. Go do that. Right. And it was like, wow, it was so eye-opening to me because people are buying your time. They're buying your value, right, within that time, and how you're getting them the results of why they hired you in the first place. And that was a huge shift. And that happened for me about 7 or 8 years ago, but I never forgot it. And it was like, oh my gosh, I just really love it. So sometimes when people will say to me, well, what does it look like to work with you? Like, are they hour sessions or whatever, which is very telling when someone says that. And really for me, it's like, well, let's make the decision about what it is that you want. And can I get you those results, and everything else is details, right?
Totally.
That's not where they should be making their decision about whether it's a 60-minute, 75-minute, or 90-minute session. It's really about what are the results you want to get. And wouldn't you be happy if I could get them for you in half the time? Right? So
Totally. And I think you're really hitting on a fear that a lot of coaches have, which is the fear of responsibility, right? I know I experienced this as well, where I was worried that, like, what if I make this claim that I can help you faster and something unknown comes out of the woodwork and it compromises our ability to hit the goal on time? Like, that gave me significant anxiety. And here's what helped. Coach, you're not actually promising the result for the person because they have to do the work. Exactly. And what you are committing to, though, is the process. What is the process that you're going to take people through? That's inclusive of your sessions, of how you do the follow-up notes, how whatever curriculum you might be providing if you do hybrid coaching, which I really recommend. I think that's a good idea. But that anxiety about, like, will they, won't they? It's kind of, we're right around the new year. It's kind of like when people make that resolution, I'm going to lose weight. And then they hire the personal trainer. Like, can you imagine if the personal trainer was like, I'm sorry, I don't want to help you because you might not lose the weight.
I know you're not really going to do it. And in 2 weeks, you're going to, yes, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine? But, like, that's what a lot of coaches do, is they hedge themselves way out of the game by not being specific, by not having a process, by not defending their process. So, as you were speaking, I was thinking, gosh, one of the most transformative moments for me was when I found my motto. And my motto is, do what matters. And it's a reminder to make a decision and take action. Do it now. Don't ask how, right? Like, just get into motion and you'll innately do the learning and you'll do the consumption and all of that. That's almost automatic. But what people don't do is they don't make a decision and they don't take action, on that decision because of their fears around the responsibility and getting specific.
It's really important because I think for me, everything is about lifestyle. So when people say, well, what makes you different, right? How many times do we get asked that? Well, what makes you different than, the 500 other coaches or consultants, whatever? And it's like, well, I start with lifestyle. I always say, let me help you design the lifestyle you want to live, and then we'll build a business that supports that lifestyle, not the other way around, right? So that everything you do brings you joy, right? And feeds your soul, which is what is so important to me and for the people that I attract, right? That is what is important to them. But do what matters, because I think a lot of times people get caught up in the doing. What does this book tell me to do? What does this group tell me to do? What does this thing tell me to do? And it's like, you need to get off the do train, right? And really realize you do need to do, but you need to do what matters. And I love that that's your motto, because I think it really speaks very quickly to truth of what is really necessary. So in that messaging, I think that is really great. But Amanda, I think many coaches feel obligated to rescue, in air quotes, right, clients who really may not be ready for coaching, right? And what mindset shifts or strategies can help them confidently to say no to clients who aren't the right fit? Like, that was hard for me a long, long time ago. I've gotten really, really good at it, right? Who wants to work with clients that are not the right fit clients, right? Oh, that is just, ugh. But what can you say to the people who want to the coaches who feel obligated to rescue those clients?
I would say, number one, find your outlet, right? If you have this passion to give back, then volunteer, join a nonprofit, join a board, like, do something proactive, and don't sacrifice your business on the altar of trying to be liked and likable by everyone. Like, that's just, I'd say if you really, really want to help, go serve, like, actually go to a soup kitchen. And stop conflating your identity as somebody who helps with your business architecture. I'll tell you an actual tactical thing that saved my patootie, which was I established a community standard. And all a community standard is it's a kind of a code of culture. It's what are the normal behaviors of this organization? And when I sat down, I not only put it in my contracts, I put it in the beginning of all my programs, I put it in my onboarding to just say, like, you will encounter frustration. And here's how we deal with it. You can get mad. You're just not allowed to be mean. And I actually put into words a community standard. And boy, that helped me so much during the sales process, because if people were already breaking with that standard, and then I would ask a question or guide us back to the standard, and they insisted on living outside, boy, that was an easy decision, you know? And here's the language. I don't feel that we're a fit right now, right? Give them the out of the timing. And I think you'll find like very few people will argue with you, right? Because actually paying money is painful. No matter how much money somebody is spending, it activates the same receptors in the brain as if you physically hurt yourself. So if you give somebody an out to not make the decision by saying, I don't feel this is a fit right now, then they're going to be like, okay, you know, it's almost like you're serving them the objection for them so that they can move forward. And it's true. Right? Like I often think, not like this, not right now, you know, and that helps me a lot. The last thing I'll say here too is the cost of a bad client is at least 5 times the sale. At least.
Well, you know, when you think about it, really, we want to be the go-to expert, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that go-to expert means that if you're not the right fit, I'm going to say that too. And then I'm going to introduce you to somebody that is the right fit for you right now. And maybe you'll come back later and maybe you won't, but that's okay. That's what's so beautiful about what we do. Like I only want to serve the people I know I was meant to serve, and the rest of it is philanthropy. And I love that. And it took me a long time for me to get there as well early on. And serendipity is such a beautiful thing. And I remember one time I was struggling sleeping, and I just, no matter what I did, I just couldn't sleep at night. And I went to get help for that. And one of the things that came up was that before I closed for the day, I always looked at my calendar for the next day. So I was working in my sleep.
Oh, wow.
But here's what the side benefit of that was, the serendipity part, is I was like, oh, so that cured that. And here's what else it did. It made me realize that when I got up in the morning, and that's what they told me to do, don't look at your calendar till you wake up in the morning. So when I woke up in the morning, I was having coffee, I would look at my calendar. And what would happen is sometimes I would look at my calendar and I'd be like, yay, I'd be all excited. And then sometimes I'd look at my calendar and be like, ugh, right? And I didn't realize that. And all of a sudden, that was the wake-up call for me, that I don't want to ever work with anybody that when I see their name in my calendar, my mind goes, ugh, right? I only want to have people in my calendar that make me feel joy that I'm working with them. So that was kind of a serendipitous thing. So I found the right clients and got to sleep at night, right? You know, both those things got to happen.
Go figure.
I didn't realize it until then that I was sometimes, for lack of a better word, rescuing people because I knew I could help them. They just weren't ready. And you can't do it for them, right? You could walk totally with them. You cannot do it for them. It's like going to the gym. You can't hire somebody to do your push-ups for you, right? You know?
Well, and
like,
you know,
and I love that you teach that.
And I have like a real aversion to people wasting money. I don't know what it is. Like even, you know, if somebody's making an investment, even at our lowest ticket, I'm like, you're conscious about this, right? You're making a decision about this, right? And what I always found was is generally kind of a timing issue, if not like a personality chemistry issue. And like those things are so solvable, but like develop an aversion to people wasting their time and money. Because if you do that, you can serve really powerfully when you realize, oh my gosh, I can really help you. And you're going to advocate for them to step into the program. But if you're like, ooh, you know, this is going to be one of those people that's draining all the time and the energy and you're wasting their money, it makes it such an easier conversation.
No, I agree. Okay, so let's talk about those high achieving clients, right?
Yeah.
So once you have a high achieving client enroll, right? So they say yes, they step into it. What strategies can coaches use to structure their offerings and create transformative experiences that will ensure client retention and continued success?
I love it. The first thing that came to my mind is actually book a meeting from a meeting, right? So I have this little saying called BAM FAM. And so when you're working with somebody who is a high achiever, you're like, I don't know, 3% of their attention span, even if they've invested a ton of money, because, really high achieving people, they got the family, they got the job, they got the business, they got all these things cooking. So whatever you can do to reduce the anxiety attached to being in a coaching relationship, not by saying they're their poor baby, literally just set the anticipation and the expectation of what happens next. So from the enrollment call, amazing, we're going to do your welcome call. Let's schedule that for this time. Here's what we're going to do in that meeting, right? That's all you have to do. And then they get to that meeting and it's like, amazing, we're going to do your first coaching session. We've got the regular time set for Thursdays at 1 p.m. That still works for you. Oh no, I forgot, I'm going on a vacation. No worries. When's your vacation? By dealing with those little logistical things way up front and having the plan on the calendar of what they can anticipate is going to happen next. So important. But it's also really important that I almost think of it like you're stringing a necklace, right, of beads or pearls. And it's like, okay, in the last session we did this. So now we're going to continue to that. And in the next session, we're going to do that. Sound good? And you're getting that enrollment the whole time. I've found by having simply that method, right, just that approach with people, I've had coaching clients go on into 4 years of renewals. And it's just because there was always something next that we were going to work on and they could trust and rely on me to facilitate that process with them.
So true. Okay, so let's talk about one of my favorite things, storytelling. So how would you say that storytelling and social proof help coaches to effectively demonstrate the value of their services and build trust with prospective clients, but that are aligned with their vision, right? So they're the right ones.
Oh yeah, there's a lot there. I know when I first heard that you're supposed to use story to convert people, I went into a panic because I go into a panic a lot. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I went into a panic because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so boring. Like I was so worried that I grew up in a really small town. Who can relate to that? I grew up in the Arctic of Canada. Who can relate to that? I haven't had any like crazy medical diagnoses that I survived. I've never been in an insane car accident, right? So I was just going through like all the reasons why my stories suck. But then I heard Bo Eason at a seminar, and if you don't know him, look him up on Instagram. He's fabulous. He teaches stage presence and storytelling. And he said this one thing, and it just unlocked storytelling for me forever. He said, it's not, when somebody listens to your story, they are conjuring visions of their own experience. So when I say I grew up in a small town, you are probably thinking of a small town you're familiar with. So now we're relating, right? I can also speak to the human experience of loneliness. So yeah, there were the statistics and the facts and the logic of what, when I was lonely. But when I start conjuring that story, you're reflecting on that time you felt really lonely or you felt like you were rejected. And when I realized that those are the projections that are going on, they're yours, they're not mine. All the story does is it's almost like this flint spark. So the best stories are going to really conjure something almost like turning on a projector in the mind of your listener. So what does that have to do with business? Everything. Because everything. Because, I love the commercial, what's in your wallet? Have you heard that one? Right? And I think it's like Chase or something. Don't come after me. I've got the wrong credit card company. But it's asking kind of a fun question. What's in your wallet? As in, we all get to decide what goes in and comes out of our wallet. So if we're not activated in our own emotions, if we're not relating to the person that we're buying from, I think we've all probably had that experience where someone was like really pushy, took no time with us, was trying to push us into a sale. And what do we do with our wallet? Snap it closed, right? But when you're with somebody who really cares, like I went shopping with my grandmother on a trip in Italy a few years ago, and the ladies in that shop, they were connecting and relating, even with broken English and everything. And I spent so much money in that boutique because I was like, I want to give my money and my business and my, and I'm getting something I really like. And it's like that story that we're actually weaving together. So in terms of social proof, my favorite way to share social proof is to actually tell a story of what somebody was facing when they came to me, and then what we did, right? Respecting confidentiality, but like the top 3 bullets, what did we do together? And then what was the new outcome? So you can kind of think of it as like a before and after. That social proof can help so much because, again, you're activating the projector in somebody's brain and they're thinking, oh my gosh, this, I can see myself in this movie, right? And that's the role of social proof.
And you do that really, really well too. I've always really enjoyed that. And I think that this is important because storytelling and, social proof, they just go together. But I have to tell you, when I say this to people, they're like, really, Patty? It was a struggle for me, and it still doesn't come easy. So it's not a struggle anymore. But when I first became a speaker, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to tell stories. And what happens is, like, in case anybody, surprise here, but I'm kind of wordy. And And so I want to paint everything, the picture and the trees and everything, because I feel like that's important. And I had to learn early on that you could tell a story and people are leaning in and they're relating to the story. But if you keep going and going and going, pretty soon they don't, because it's not their story anymore, like what you just said, right? So I had to learn that. And I don't usually say this kind of stuff, but somebody said something to me once that I have to tell you, if I didn't have a pretty healthy ego at that point, it could have wiped me out. But I actually had somebody say to me, are you ready for this? She said to me, I was learning storytelling as a speaker. I'd only been speaking like 6 months. And she said, Patty, here's something you need to know. She said, it is, are you ready? Disrespectful for you to take 10 minutes to say something that you should have been able to say in 5. Wow. Is that like, it could have wiped me out, and it did kind of set me back for a minute. I had to really practice good manners by not giving a response that probably wasn't the appropriate one in the moment. But I have to tell you, I've never forgotten it either, though. And whenever I share it, people are like, really? Somebody said that? I'm like, yes. Can you believe that? But what's kind of interesting is that person was a coach, and I have never seen her again. So I don't think she coaches anymore, and I don't know why. But with that said, really, I had to learn that to be able to say, okay, Patty, when you're telling a story, what's the point of the story? Really? And so it is a skill. It is a skill. And some people are just naturals at it. I am not one of them. I'm not one of those people. I have to really work at it. I'm a lot better than I was. You are very, very good at it, Amanda. I have to tell you, but I do think it is very important. And I feel like it is something that if somebody struggles with, they actually should, even though I hate saying the word should, that is something they want to get help with. Right.
Totally.
And,
I really agree. I look at my own abilities. I have a chemical engineering degree. My aptitude is very much process systems and process, more please, right? And so for me, when I first started telling stories, they were all chronological. I had to give all of the details because that's what a person should do. But then I also had very similar advice about brevity when I was in corporate America. And it was the same attitude. It's disrespectful to waste people's time. You need to have really short emails. And one of the first things that I had to learn was like, yeah, but real authentic relationships aren't like that. They do bob and weave. And, I've learned a lot of techniques over the years. One of my favorites is this. When you're writing your story, write it chronologically, because that's how you probably think that, that's just how it comes out, right? But then find the most dramatic and exciting moment and make it the first line. So this is called the 007 trick. And I learned it from Greg Clemens, who was the founder of Golden Hippo. He's done like billions of dollars of direct response sales writing. And the 007 franchise just keeps going and going and going and going. And basically the reason is every 007 movie opens with an intense action scene. So it hooks you right at the beginning. If you look at most movies, it's like people sitting. I literally saw a movie the other day where people were sitting around the breakfast table, slow pan in from the farm, and it's like this really low dopamine experience. Whereas 007, we start right in the action. So you can really play with the order of what you're telling. But what I like to do is get it out chronologically first.
Actually, that's really, really good. So speaking about that, what tools or techniques or platforms do you recommend for streamlining lead generation? I know you talk about that. That's what we're talking about. And client onboarding to create let's say, a seamless experience for both the coach and the client.
Yeah. Right now, my favorite tool in the marketplace is Go High Level. And I have a white label of it. You can be an agency or where you can sell a white labeled version of the software. And I do that because it helps so many people with their process and it gives them kind of a one-click setup for a lot of things. However, I would just recommend the tool anyway. So you don't have to sign up under somebody else. You can go straight to the source of Go High Level if you want to. You can do a basic package of like $97 or something like that. And then, it's more limited. Now, one of the advantages of working with somebody that's in an agency and you can ask these questions, tell them I sent you, is what features of Go High Level are unlocked for the price. Right. And just get that really clear. What I chose to do with my white label is I was like, I'm giving you what Go High Level sells for $297 for $97. Right. So, but that's just a choice that I made. And like lots of different agency owners will have different things. So just ask the question, like what's locked is the question you want to ask.
I think it is important though, because I just transitioned over to Go High Level myself.
Hey, good.
And I have my own agency, but I think that a lot of times when people go out there and they hear about a great tool, they hear about all this other stuff. And because of that, they just don't know how to make the decision of what's the best one for them. So I love that right there. You kind of broke down a few things so people would know, yes, you don't have to do all this. You can just do this. Again, when you're ready, you can do that and then have a good coach that can be there to help you. So like literally your answer to that kind of went with everything else that you have said too. And it's so you, Amanda, and I love that. So
yeah, I would, there's one other tool that I would really, really recommend. And that is a word processor, like Google Drive. Write all of your emails, your onboarding email, your introduction email, your weekly reviews, your like whatever is going to happen more than 5 times. Write it in a Google Doc is what I would recommend and have a folder structure. I like Google Drive. I mean, you could do OneNote, you could do Word, you could do, Unix, whatever. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you have the source information because over the years I have switched, I did Go High Level. But a couple of years ago, I was all Active Campaign. And then before that, I was all Kajabi. And, I've tested ClickFunnels and like I have...
Well, there's an ebb and flow when it comes to tools, I think, right? That
it's true. I think
was with
GHL's the winner.
Time, except ClickFunnels. And I do think that is really important. I also think that right now it is very important. I love doing those things and having my VA create an SOP for everything we do, right? But now more than ever, I think it's more important because if you do it, like you said, more than 5 times, you can create a custom GPT for that right now. And that is where AI is a great tool, right?
Totally.
Do over and over again, I think is really, really important. Now, that's not what our show's about this time and stuff though, but I have to tell you, that is really, really a good tool that she just said. It's really a good practice, whether you're ready for custom GPTs, whether you're using AI or not, and how are you using it? Just get in that habit to do it. And once you do, it'll be really, really easy.
Totally.
So let's talk about niching. We talked about it a little bit early on. So for coaches who are hesitant to niche down, right? How do you think that they can identify who their ideal audience is and build a focused practice without feeling boxed in or limited or, oh my gosh, right? But when they're hesitant, and I think that sometimes people are, I have to tell you, I also think that if somebody's at that point, they could, coaches have coaches. I always have at least two, right? And a lot of times I think if this is something that somebody is thinking about and they are hesitant, maybe getting coached on that themselves is probably a good thing. But what would you say how can they identify who their target audience is? But they really need to really figure out like how to not feel like, oh, I'm leaving money on the table and all that kind of stuff, right?
I hate that. Like I'm leaving money on the table. I'm like, here's the truth of the universe, folks. There's money everywhere, trillions of dollars being exchanged today, right? So like that whole scarcity mindset of like, there's this imaginary pile of money on an imaginary table that you're imaginarily walking away from is like one of the most unhelpful beliefs that people have. But I get it because I know you also want to win. And, I have this feeling as we get to know each other better and better, Patty, that we have this in common. Like there's a little bit of a competitive spirit of like, I want to win though. Right. And that's where we can get a bit, convoluted, I think, in our strategy, because this is actually a strategy problem. This is not a you suck at anything kind of a problem. This is not it's hard to do kind of a problem. It's exercising the muscle of decisiveness. And something that really broke me loose on this one, because, I got 4 kids. I've got a Chris. He has a sword collection. It's expensive, right? Like I want to win and I want to be profitable. But I also have this weird requirement where, again, it has to fit with the lifestyle, and another weird requirement where, I like my clients to like me and me to like my clients, So when you start adding these constraints, it actually creates decisiveness, because you're cutting away other opportunities and other options. When it came to niching down, what set me free was actually letting go a little bit of the identity of coach and embracing more the identity of entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is an experimenter. They're always going to try new things. So my standard is, hey, babe, if you signed a contract with me and you paid, guess who's fulfilling on that contract 110% with a big old smile? But that doesn't mean I ever have to sell that contract ever again to another person. I am not obligated to sell, in the same niche or the same program or anything like that. I will honor every promise I made. 110%. But I get to, as an entrepreneur, test the waters. And as we head into 2025, that's one of my biggest platform messages is that your success is not how many clients you have. Your success is your follow through on testing ideas and getting feedback and getting another test out there that is informed by the last test. When you do that, you're going to discover who is awesome to work with you. And then you're going to be so hungry to work with more people like that. Don't live in indecision land. That is the worst place for an entrepreneur to live.
I love that. And you talk about that a lot. And that's why I always listen to your podcast. You have a podcast too. Everybody you can look below and we'll have a button for that for you. But the Amanda Kaufman show, her podcast is phenomenal. And she kind of goes into depth on this too. So you're going to want to check that out. And as long as I'm talking about that, she also has a book, Coaching Leads Made Easy book. And we're going to have a link to that too. But I'm going to tell you, those two things, I really love them. Like when I sat down to read the book, I read it from cover to cover. Like I sat down in one sitting and read it from cover to cover. I thought it was phenomenal, right? Really, really phenomenal. And I have to tell you, there are 8 podcasts. I mean, I listen to podcasts like almost every day, but I have 8 that I never miss an episode, right? I hope some of you that are listening, mine is one of those for you too. But with that said, there's like 8 and yours is one of them. So I always listen to your podcast. I love it. And stuff. So I'm going to recommend everybody do it too. So like we're talking about some great stuff here. I know when you're talking about like high achieving premium stuff, we always want more information, right? We always want more information. We want to go deeper. So those are 2 places that you can do that. But with that said, Amanda, what trends or shifts do you see shaping the future of the coaching industry? And how can coaches position themselves to thrive in this ever evolving landscape that we're in?
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you very much for the recommendations on the book and the podcast. You made me a little misty. I'm so glad you enjoy them. The trends, I got excited about that question too, because literally just 24 hours ago, I was sitting on my laptop looking at Google Trends and, doing more market research. And, I just had a coffee with a girlfriend and here's my take. Here's my take on the future, Amanda's prediction. So you come back a year from now and see if I'm right. But I think that the coaching industry, I'm bullish on it. I think that there is huge opportunity right now. And I think it's changing from what it was. So I think a few years ago, it was very information led. Let me show you how to do this and how to do that. And the issue is our friend ChatGPT, right? And Claude or whatever tool you're using now, your Google, they've actually been sweeping the number of searches. So Google search number has actually gone down because more people are going to ChatGPT, right? And having a full conversational dialogue where it's searching the internet and getting their answers.
And I think voice devices too are taking away from Google as well.
Totally. So I remember when ChatGPT came out a couple years ago, guess how I reacted? Panic, right? Because I was like, okay, well, what's the point of having a coach? Because ChatGPT can just give you the steps. ChatGPT can just write the copy.
I hear that so much. And if I had $1 for every time I've heard somebody say it and say that, it's like, really? Let's like kind of,
Yes. So my first reaction was 1000% panic, right? I would have had to give you $1. But I decided, do it matters. I was like, look, this is not going away. I decided that I was just going to open a tab and see if I could use it somehow. It has become the fourth employee of my business. Okay. Exactly. It works so hard for me. And you can't just not do your business and have AI, which I think was my fear. It was that, oh, we're so replaceable now. And what I realized, and here's my prediction. Humans really crave human connection.
Exactly.
We need it. And I've always believed that coaching is as much a social contract as it is anything else. And so I think the need for real leadership, brave leadership, courageous leadership is going to be more and more and more over the next 5 years. I think accountability and follow through are going to become a more important aspect of coaching. I actually heard this earlier this year from a fellow coach. He's very high performing. He said, people invest in your standards. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I really believe that, because my best clients, they're modeling a lot of the things that I do. They're not trying to be me, but the pieces that work for them in their life, they're modeling the things that I'm doing. So I realized, I'm oh my gosh, self-leadership and coaching is going to be non-negotiable. I think the other thing that's going to happen and is happening is that from a marketing perspective and a sales perspective, you will need to speak very directly to your ideal client, and it needs to be all about the trust you have together. So I think we're going to see a lot more hyper niching, and we're going to see a lot more kind of boutique experiences versus, a couple of years ago, everything was in these massive programs. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity, but you as the coach need to be willing to step up to the plate. And I think the other thing is that there's a lot of unknowns that no one can know. So your ability to navigate uncertainty is going to be one of the biggest things your clients are going to come to you for.
I think that's so true, because I always like to say, when the pandemic hit, I used to say, when people would say to you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Nobody got that right. Because we didn't see that coming, right?
Nope.
Nobody got that right. So I feel like right now with the AI evolution, we need to just embrace it. And I love what you said, because I do feel like more and more people are craving that human connection. And as somebody who uses my voice in many ways, but specifically as a publisher of the magazine, I also write for Forbes. And Forbes had a side of paper that basically said, we will not use AI to write. And I was like, ooh, I love that, right? So people who write for me, same thing. There is nothing that I write that is AI written. Now, with that said, do I ideate? Do I brainstorm? Do I do research and use it as an assistant? Absolutely.
Totally.
But when I write or speak, it is always me, which is why, like earlier when you said about being part of my community, that's why the community and the biggest thing for me in 2025 is the new thing, for lack of a better term, that I'm rolling out, Marketing for Humans, with a little help from AI. AI can be your assistant, can be really, really great, but still, you got to know. Like I used to say to people used to get hung up on this. So think about this, man. People used to say to me, I don't know whether I'm B2B or B2C. It would crack me up. And I would say, really? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, well, look to your right and look to your left. Is there a B or a C sitting next to you? Because I don't know about you, but I'm in the people business and we're people to people. We're not a business to business or a business to consumer. Is that kind of a model a little bit? Yes. Does it affect some of the things? Yes. But you can't forget that, people don't hire logos. They don't hire brands. They hire people, right? People want to work with people. And so that is never going to go away. So human connection is even more important. So yes, AI is good. Coaches should embrace it, right? And it saves us time so that we can spend more time doing the things that we want to do, what our mission is and what our purpose is. So I really love that. And those trends that you are talking about, I think they really matter and people should really pay attention, but they shouldn't get caught up in the hype either, right?
There is a lot of hype and it's always fun to make a prediction and to come up with like why you think that is. But you're right. I mean, you show up in a year like 2020 and you're like, who saw that coming, right? Not very many people. So, I think that the best part or the most important part about predictions is be very, very mindful and careful that you're not stuck in 3 years ago, and that you're willing to try new things. And I really try to push myself to 20% shift minimum, 20% try something new, 80% solid foundation, 20% experiment. 'Cause you never know when you're going to hit in that 20%, the new 80%, the new thing that's going to be the thing, right? So you got to hold that space.
I agree with you. I think it's says a lot, like I'm in marketing, you're in marketing. I think one of the big things that's really happening now as we niche down for me is really surrounding myself and building my business through collaboration, right? And I feel like we have an abundant mindset. And if really it's all about serving our client, bringing in other people, even if they overlap and do what we do, I have to tell you, my favorite collaboration partner is somebody who does overlap because then they get it. And they get it when I'm telling them, when I'm bringing them in with my client, like I know that they get it. And I think that philosophy of collaboration is so important. And it's even more important now. And I love it when I see it. So yes, I think really thinking about people who do what you do, but how do they serve in a different way is really important. Because remember back in the day, people used to say, oh, well, I like networking or being part of a community of like-minded people. Well, that's kind of nice, but actually times have changed. And for me, what I am looking for and what the culture that I am building is that I want to be a part of a heart-centered, diverse-minded group, right?
I love that.
Love it when people tell me something, I'm like, oh, that's a different perspective, or they shift my perspective or shift my thoughts. So I'm thinking about something differently. I love that. It's kind of like when people would say, oh, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Well, of course not. But I want to be in the room with people who are going to shift, right? And help me to change my perspective because that's what's going to help me to grow and move forward. And it's exciting to be in a room. The conversation is so much more dynamic. So I remember when you and I met for coffee, Man, I got to tell you, we were together like 40 minutes, but that 40 minutes was so dynamic and enriching and deep. I was like, oh yes, you have to come on my podcast because we get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get it. And I really, really love that. And like I said, I love your podcast, your book, and all the things and stuff though. So we were going to reflect on your journey, Amanda. What's one piece of advice that you would give to coaches who are striving to create more meaningful connections and sustainable success in their practice? Like, what would you tell them?
You know, I was such a socially awkward person. I maybe still am in some ways. But my fear really ruled me in the early days of this business. I only had 8 names on a Post-it of people that I deigned to ask, like, would you like to have a complimentary session? And I got to tell you, my heart was leaping out of my chest with every request that I made. So I understand social anxiety. It's also why sales is one of the top paid roles in an organization, is because that's just human. We don't want to be rejected. You know, social risk is arguably one of the most painful things that we experience in our lives. So all of that to say, I would tell myself early on, hey girl, hey, you get to become a popular girl. You finally get to be a popular girl. And you're allowed to use systems to help you. Because I had this belief that, you know, I had to memorize everybody's name, the name of their dog, their birthday, their anniversary, exactly what their preferences were on pizza. And if I didn't have like all of those things at the top of my mind, then I wasn't worthy of a relationship with that person. And that's kind of a crazy standard, you know, to hold yourself to. And the truth is, your favorite people, you do know the name of their dog. You do know the preferences on pizza. But like, coaching is a relationship sport. And it's okay to use a spreadsheet or a ClickUp or a Notion, whatever your thing is, or CRM. It's okay to use a system to remind you to reach out. You know, and for me, it's like, I literally see a name and I'm like, right, the last thing we talked about was this. I'm going to ask them how that's going, right? Or right, they told me that they were about to launch that book. I'm going to ask them how the book launch went, right? And why didn't I hear from them also? Who was doing their marketing? That's what I want to know. But the point is you just need the little prompt and the encouragement. You are the popular. I had a lot of male sales coaches. And one of the things they said is, you know, you need to channel the persona of the hottest girl in the bar. So you can talk to anybody, right? And everybody wants to talk to you. And I'm like, I don't think I would ever hear that in a female entrepreneurship group, but I'm going to take that one to the bank, you know, be the hottest girl in the bar, all the way, choose to be popular, you know, and like, if somebody does not choose you, Pikachu, don't take it personally. They just don't know you yet.
Exactly. I love that. So, Amanda, we talked about your podcast. Listen to that, everybody. And her book. And I have to tell you, her book is less than $5. Like, really? Like, less than $5. That's $5 you'll ever spend. But she also came with a gift. So tell us a little bit about this Thrive and Scale Expert Blueprint that you gave as a gift for everybody, whether you're watching or listening. Look below. There's a button for you to get that really easy too. But tell us a little bit about it, Amanda.
I love to help people build a business that they authentically thrive in. That's a huge priority of mine. It's like, yes, be profitable, but also like be fulfilled and in enjoyment overall with what you do. I mean, we always have those little things that are annoying, but I want you to love what you do. So the Thrive and Scale Blueprint is my mathematical answer to how do you build a profitable coaching business without going broke, without feeling like you never have enough time. And I even touch on what to do when you don't have a social media following or you don't have an email list, you really haven't started your marketing. It kind of meets you there. And the thing about this PDF, what actually inspired it is, I don't know about you, but I feel like everybody's asking me to watch a masterclass these days. And I'm just like, a little over it. Like I kind of want to know that it's going to be a good use of time to spend hours with you. And so I've moved to doing a lot more lead magnets that are in the written format because you can get a lot of the same information across and all of that in the written format. So it is kind of like a masterclass. And I think the pitch at the end is just if you want to contact for more information. So it's very, very light touch with contact information. That's it. But it's literally like, what would I cover in a detailed workshop masterclass if the whole goal was you were going to walk out with your strategic blueprint for a thriving premium coaching business.
Wow. I love that. And I actually downloaded it, of course. So Amanda, how can people get a hold of you? So I'm pretty sure that on your website, you have all your social and all that kind of stuff. So how would people connect with you? Because I know that they're going to want to.
The best place to find me is Facebook. So you can go to facebook.com/chat with Amanda Kaufman, and that'll take you right to my profile page. So let's just start there. Let's be friends. I post multiple times a day there, so you'll get a real sense of who I am and what I'm about, and it'll lead you all the other places.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here with me. This has been phenomenal. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for being so generous with your brilliance, as always. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Patty. This was so fun.
Thank you. It really was fun. And to my audience, thank you so much for spending another morning with me. It has been a pleasure to have you. I hope you all have a phenomenal week. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed today's episode, and I am sure that you did, please like, subscribe, share, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And if you want more brilliant content, check out the magazine, the Marketing Media Money magazine at m3digitalmag.com. Until next week, have a phenomenal week. Bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine. I promise your business will thank you.